Did I mention that I do the technology kind of badly? The last time I didn't realize that I had not started the side recording that we put up on YouTube until we had missed the first part of the presentation, and it was about medical procedures, so it's really a good idea to have the whole thing. So if you want to see that one, you have to go back to the previous recording on Facebook because I didn't get the whole recording on for YouTube. Anyways, you can say don't quit my day job, but I've got 3 day jobs, so I can't quit any of those. We're very excited to see you here because we have an opportunity for encouragement, for help, for knowledge. My knowledge of Parkinson's still is about this big. And what got me motivated in this direction of helping to get this group started was, first of all, George. He and I talked some years ago about the fact that there was no support group that he could find for tremor diseases. And of course, as he has said, he was misdiagnosed many times and didn't really know what he had, but he had something. It's good to have more knowledge to be able to kind of fight through that type of problem and situation. My wife and I found out last summer that my brother-in-law up in Indiana has Parkinson's. When we got back at Christmas, found out that a friend here locally has Parkinson's, longtime friend. Have talked with many other people in my church who have loved ones and family members and relatives with, you guessed it, and it was God tapping me on the shoulder at the same time he was tapping George and saying, come on, let's get this thing moving. Add to that a year ago, I started doing hospice chaplaincy and watching the pressure on caregivers as people are in end of life, and hospice doesn't say that you have to die in this much time or you've only got this much time left. I've heard of people who have been on hospice for 6 years. Now, I don't know if that's the right thing or the wrong thing as far as using hospice. That's a discussion for another time. But hopefully hospice helps in many ways. But watching what the caregivers go through, that's something that I was not as directly exposed to as I have been the last year. So it helps extend my heart to all who are involved, all the family members, and to want to offer something that can be a help. And to see this group and the people we've had come and speak, having an association with the Parkinson's Association. Anyways, didn't mean to use the same word twice there, but anyways. So anyways, that's kind of up to the minute. We're a faith-based group. And that does not mean that we're going to have sermons here. Just the opposite. Being faith-based is more about the love of God for us and that we can share with each other. And, we do have opportunities. Oh, yes, we have water in the back. If anybody would like a bottle of water, please help yourself. The first few meetings, I've shared a scripture verse. And the last couple have been out of the Psalms. And where I got the specific Psalm from, there's a young lady that I found on Instagram named Brittany or Bethany Yee, Y-E-H, and she's going through the Psalms. But her Psalm that she read that I saw earlier today was about watching out for your enemies and God protect us and help us. And I guess maybe we feel like these illnesses can be like enemies. But my mind went to Philippians chapter 4. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. To have the opportunity to rejoice, and joy and happiness are two entirely different animals. Happiness comes from things that happen, but joy comes from the strength that we have inside. And for myself as a Christian, I get my strength from God, from Jesus. Now, to belong to this group or be a part of it, you don't have to be a Christian, you don't have to be a believer, but we're going to talk about that some. We've already talked about it, so. George, what would you like to say? And come on up so they can see the side of your head up here.
Okay. First of all, I just want to thank everybody who showed up. I've been watching the weather all day and sweating all day because that's why I asked for everybody's phone number and email. But I said I was going to come anyway. If it was just me, I was going to be here, and slowly but surely I saw Pastor Matt and Leroy and his lovely wife and Nabi, who's new to our group. And it was supposed to have been some more people that showed up, but one gentleman fell and had hip surgery. Our group is growing, and I'm not going to talk long because I think we have a very knowledgeable, a very outgoing speaker tonight. I'm actually excited that he agreed to speak tonight. It puts a smile on my face. I consider him, Leroy, Nabi, all y'all family and friends, and that's one of the things that when we talked about forming this group, and I was telling Leroy's lovely wife back there, I said, I'm in so much pain that it's almost ripping me apart, the tightness. So I'm really in a lot of pain, but I said, you kind of lead by example. I don't see a Parkinson's support group. I see a Parkinson's support group family. And that's what I was looking for. And the first meeting, and this is our only third meeting, just the impact, and I'm not gonna get emotional and I'm not gonna talk long, that these two guys had on me. I felt the bond like you may feel in the military or in the, just on the job. I felt the bond. I mean, I love these two guys, and Nabi, you're part of the family, and I just want to say thank you for calling me and coming out. And we're looking at some other ways. I'm going to talk after Joe. Again, Joe's our guest speaker, but we have some ideas, and like Pastor Matt Scott was just saying, we're getting anywhere from 160 to 180 views, and we got up to 200 last time.
Yeah. Well, that was a preacher count,
Okay.
How many are at the meeting tonight? I think about 30.
Okay. But we're literally on Facebook Live. We're hitting 160 to 180 consecutively, and this is just our third meeting. Are we going to grow? Yes. Do we have some ideas? Yes. We're going to talk about that after Joe. But first of all, I want to introduce a great man, a great friend, who's going to be speaking about Parkinson's tonight. Joe, if you want to stand, if you want to sit, make yourself at home. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Nice to meet you, Joe. You. Thank you.
Well, thank you, George. Well, I'm glad to have a part of the program tonight, and humbled to be asked. And George has referred to what I know about Parkinson's, and this is not try to be big head or anything, because that's easy to be tempted to that type of thing. But I think what he's referring to is the fact that I've been diagnosed 5 years this past month, May. And when I got diagnosed in May of 2018, one of the things that my movement disorder specialist said fairly early on was that, well, don't go on Google, don't go on the internet, don't look up information about Parkinson's. And I heard her say that, but that's just not me. And that's a double-edged sword, unfortunately. And I guess that's true for most any kind of medical condition. But the pastor here referred to the concept of the enemy and the disease. And I'm a former Army officer, and I frame a lot of things in enemy and friend. Mm-hmm. And Parkinson's is not our friend. I'm convinced of that. Right. But I told the doctor that when she started talking that to me, I said, well, I believe in knowing your enemy. And if you don't know your enemy, it's some ancient saying. I don't know if it's from Shih Tzu or whoever it is, Shinzu, but if you don't know your enemy, you certainly can't defeat your enemy. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that we're even going to defeat Parkinson's, but I do believe that knowledge is power. And so my wife can tell you, and this is my wife and son, they can tell you that I'm on a computer, which is my phone, in the country where we don't have very good reception. But for that first 5 years, let's say the first 4 years, I was pretty much on the computer every day, reading something, listening to a video by some professor, some neurologist, some neuroscientist, a foundation, something to do with Parkinson's, and taking in as much as I could so I could know about this enemy that we all face. Whether we're a patient or a caregiver, we're in this together to get the family through a bad situation, potentially bad. And so I've read, and people say, well, if you read too much on the internet, you're going to fill your head with a lot of nonsense. Well, here's how I deal with that. I don't let, they say trash in, trash out. I try to discipline myself and say that I'm not going to put trash in my head, because then I might get confused, because trash might disagree with good information. So when I look at the internet information, I make a very great effort to only look at stuff that's from something like .org or .edu or whatever the foundations, I guess, like Michael Fox and Davis Finney Foundation and Parkinson's Foundation and APDA. I just put quality information in, so then I don't have to worry about later on, well, I read this and I don't remember if that was conflicting with this other fact, and I'm able to tell myself, you only put good stuff in, reliable, credible information in, so what you've got in your head should be pretty reliable. So I screen that information and don't just look at everything. But because of that dedication to reading and trying to learn on a daily basis, many, many hours, that's where I am today. Now, one of the first things I want to do is, there's 4 patients here, that's right? 4 of us are patients. Do you see an MDS, movement disorder specialist? Yes. Do you have a movement disorder specialist?
Like a doctor.
Is it a neurologist or movement disorder specialist for Parkinson's specifically?
In neurology, when I'm going the 23rd Parkinson doctor.
Yeah, he's new.
Okay.
He's just diagnosed.
Just diagnosed this past month?
I have it for 2-3 years, but the doctor didn't diagnose me.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So they put me the medicine, then it stopped again.
Okay.
I don't have it, I have it, it's going on almost 3 years.
3 years, okay. And do you have an MDS or regular neurologist?
I guess it's a
Movement disorder specialist, and I do also. So if you find out that your doctor is not a movement disorder specialist, once you get to see the new doctor, I would highly suggest that you do, because these are neurologists, but they have a special training in addition to regular neurology, specifically about movement disorders, Parkinson being the most fast growing one of all. So you will learn that they have a greater knowledge, because I started off with a regular neurologist myself, and I even went to him and said, I got this tremor in my foot and my leg. I'm thinking it's probably Parkinson's, right? And he said, oh no, it's just you have tremor. You're going to fix that with some drugs. I said, my dad had Parkinson's. He again said, no, that's not Parkinson's. 8 months later, he was still messing around, and I said, this isn't going to cut it for me. So then I asked him to move me somewhere else, and he gave me the referral to the movement disorder specialist in Virginia Beach, and so I've been there ever since. So if you can get the MDS, please do it. I think you'll be satisfied. You'll be in a much greater position. I get a physical every year with my general practice doctor, and I asked him last year, I said, except for Parkinson's, how healthy am I? And he said, Joe, except for Parkinson's, you're 95% percentile healthy man. I thought, wow, that's great, but what a waste. I got this mess pulling me down, and the rest of my health is rambunctious and ready to go, and always been, rootin' tootin', all that, But that did make me feel a little better, that all the rest of my health is right on target. So these early symptoms that we have that you're, I guess, talking about, that are so common before we even get diagnosed, is the ones that I had starting off were this loss of smell. That was some years ago. But again, 5 years since diagnosis now. Going back before 5 years, before that, I lost my sense of smell, and I was an inspector in the food stores for the state government. I had to smell rotten food and dirty equipment, and that was messing me up. I had this tremor which started in my foot, went up my leg, now it's in my hand and my arm. I had back pain, which is not as clear of a symptom, but they keep thinking that it's probably got something to do with Parkinson's in some way, because so many of us have this trouble. Then I had surgery just 3 months before I got diagnosed. And when I walked, I didn't swing this arm. I just kept this arm like this, Couldn't really swing it much. And when I stood to go to the restroom, I stood like this, and I was like, it looks like I have a stroke. I didn't realize that this had something to do with this Parkinson's coming up. The ED, that started being a problem. Where did that come from? I did not know, but now I know. And the voice got softer and gravelly sounding. But, I've overcome that some. You can hear, I think my voice sounds pretty good, but at the table, when we would say the blessing before the food and all, I just had this grinding sound in my voice. And I can do it now if I don't watch it, but those were my early symptoms. And I told you that my father had this. He died 2 years ago in a nursing home with dementia, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. So I did have a family connection there. So when I got diagnosed, I didn't tell anybody except my family. I didn't tell my church, and I didn't tell my job for a couple of months. And then once I got the neurologist, then he sent me to the movement disorder specialist who diagnosed me. Then I went to Riverside over here, Newport News Hospital, and got another Dr. Butler to look at me also. And he wouldn't tell me what he thought. He says, you probably have Parkinson's, but I'm not going to come down and say it for sure. So then I'm a veteran. So then I went to the Veteran Hospital in Richmond and had the DAT scan done on my head. And that was a confirming piece of evidence and data that pointed to Parkinson's as well. So once I had all that behind me, I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and tell my community, church family, and my job, and other friends. And so that's what I did, about 2 months later. So then I kept on working for 18 months as a food inspector, about a year and a half, and then the doctor had told me that whenever I was ready to go on disability that I could do that. And so we had to get my wife back to work because she was a school teacher at home with the homeschooling of our children. We have 3 sons. This is the youngest. The other 2 are out of the house now. But we needed to have income, and we needed to have medical insurance coverage. And so she went back to school as a teacher, which she used to do before we had children. And after 18 months, as I said, then I was able to stop stressing at work and all that goes with that and take care of my health. And it turns out that next month, the 1st of July, I'm going on Medicare because you have that 2-year wait that you have to wait. So that's why we had to have her insurance established so we would have coverage as a family. But it took me a while, more than 2 years, to get on that because we just delayed it until we were satisfied that I knew enough about it to make a choice. Now, one of the things about Parkinson's, I want to talk about some of the parts of Parkinson's. You've heard about cognition, and I guess everybody knows cognition is kind of your brain power, your focus, your ability to think straight and clearly. On the way over here today, I made a mistake. And I went, this is is this Hyatt or Hilton?
Hyatt.
This is Hyatt. I was thinking H, over by the Coliseum. I went to the Hilton. We pulled in the parking lot, I went to the door, and the door's locked, and these people out there smoking, and they said, the door's always locked, sir. I said, well, it's not only locked, I've been here twice before, and it wasn't locked. We went in and went down the hall, just like, it looks very much like this on the ground outside the premises. Walked into the hall, and all I saw was hotel room. I didn't see any meeting room at all. Then I realized that something's wrong. So that I'm thinking maybe that was some of that cognition stuff that slips, and I've had other mistakes like that that exhibit that type of a thing. And this is one of the things I definitely want to tell you all about. This cognition is something that I don't know if I've never talked to even George about this, but I wanted to ask y'all, Has anybody had a mental exam at all since they got diagnosed with Parkinson's? I have. Have you? You did? Have you had, Nabi?
No.
No. Sir? No? Okay. Well, I would speak this to you two, my thoughts on this. If cognition is going to be a problem for well over half of people with Parkinson's disease, it's my belief that we should look at that seriously as early as reasonably possible. And what you do, the advice that I received was have a neuropsych exam. A neuropsych exam is about 4.5 hours. My insurance covered it. And I went to the neurology department over in Norfolk on Waterfront Drive, I think it's called, Centera office. And I sat with this nice young lady at a desk like this for 4.5 hours. We took a break one time, but it was a long time. But it was fairly pleasant. But she asked me a lot of questions. We talked about a lot of things. I did some drawings on paper. I tried to remember numbers and words that she spoke to me, and then asked me a few minutes later to repeat what I had been told earlier. And they score you on these things. And so at the end of the process, you come back for an evaluation of a presentation of what your evaluation showed them. So what they're trying to do is see, for your age and your educational position in life, are you where the average is for that age and that professional employment history? Or are you below it or not? And it turns out if you are below it a certain amount, then they determine that you may have this thing called mild cognitive impairment, which they call MCI. And she confirmed that, yes, you do have that. Now, the value of why I'm telling you this is this. If you don't early on get the test and get a score, then as you move down the road with Parkinson's, they have no idea where you've been mentally before that. So they call this what's it called?
A baseline.
Baseline
Yeah,
score.
yeah.
So when they have the baseline score, then the next time they test you some years later, they can compare it to where you were in 2023, and then they can measure over a couple of different visits. They can measure, are you moving down very fast or moving very, very slowly, holding your own, whatever. But if you don't have any measurement of it, you don't know where you've been, like many things in life.
Joe, they did that with my mother-in-law when she was going into dementia. And having that baseline test was extremely helpful in that. So I'm sure it's not just Parkinson's, but many other areas.
Sure.
But when my brother-in-law was starting into Parkinson's, he thought it was right after his mother had died, he thought that he was going into dementia. So he had the baseline test and then come to find out it is Parkinson's.
So you hear that. Thanks for that confirmation.
Sure.
I really recommend that. And anybody listening to this, I hope you will consider it. And like I said, my insurance did cover it, but we don't want to.
Actually, I had mine wrong.
You did? Okay, well then you have a score on record, and if they test you again, they'll be able to see where you are.
If I can remember where.
Sir?
If I can remember where.
I want to say I've actually had two.
Okay.
And you're right, it can show the progression because the first one I felt terribly, and the second one was even worse. So,
Well, George, have them add the scores together. Maybe that'll be okay then.
Yeah.
hopefully.
Maybe at least they'll average them out.
That's right.
So this cognition is a very important thing, and of course we don't, your cognition can end up pretty bad with this, and it's apparently well over half the people are going to have this problem to some degree that could even be called dementia. Maybe not, full blown, incompetent for everything dementia, but it's somewhere on that spectrum. Now we're talking about these symptoms. This is something I want to show y'all that I got from the Parkinson's Foundation. They have my information. I think I asked for some information to be sent to my house, but they send out a fundraising thing every month to my house, and in that they have this little slip. I took this slip to my doctor because I wanted him to know it because he didn't know anything about Parkinson's. My general practitioner doctor, who I go faithfully to see for a physical every December for at least 8 years now. And I said, I think you ought to be known about this because you should have been asking me if I had any of these early symptoms. But there's 10 early symptoms on this slip of paper, and I'll have it for y'all to look at. As a matter of fact, somebody can take it home if you like. I've got some at home. But of the 6 things that are early symptoms, as I mentioned a while ago, I had 6 of them. That ought to be adequate to some doctor who's snappy and on the ball and looking at this, because I was in my 50s having these physicals. I think you should be looking at that, but that's me. What do I know? But it bothers me that they're not asking the questions. Have you lost your sense of smell, for example? Do you thrash around and punch your wife in bed, get up, walk around and fall down and yell and holler in the middle of the night? There's two things right there that together, they're a high indicator of the possibility of Parkinson's in your future, near future. But yet they don't ask these questions. But so the 6 that I had was the tremor, the loss of smell, trouble sleeping, trouble moving or walking, because as I said, that's part of that is not swinging your arms like you're supposed to. So I saw a man one time walking that in the grocery store, and he was walking like this. And I spoke to his wife in the grocery store, and he also had a tremor. And I said, "Can I ask you a question?" And she said, "Sure." I said, "I'd like to ask you about your husband. Does he maybe have Parkinson's disease?" And she said, "Yes, he does." Well, if people knew this, we could be helping each other get diagnosed and get, treated earlier. And if you're resisting this thing, you're going to have a much better outcome than if you're just letting it go, giving up, going passive. That's lots of evidence to show that's not the way to go. If you want to have any quality of life going forward. So that was the trouble moving or walking, and then the other one was the soft or low voice I mentioned, dizziness. When I stand up, a lot of times I feel dizzy, and I've got to hold on to the wall until I get my balance back because of the low blood pressure. And that's 6 of the 10 that I had right there. Now, a lot of these things can be improved. Like I have definitely improved my voice. This thing about people's balance, there's things you can do to improve your balance, because if you don't have balance, you're probably going to fall down and then you smash your face or you break your hip or something. It's disastrous, and that's the number 2 cause of death with Parkinson's is falls. And so you can improve your balance. Your general walking, that can be worked on. Your sense of smell, there's actually therapies that you can get this kit that has smells in it with a scratch and sniff type thing, and you work with these cards and the smells that are attached to these cards. And I've not done this yet, but I'm thinking about doing it. It's not really a crisis where I'm worried about it so much right now, but I'm aware that you can do this. You can improve your sense of smell and work backwards and regain some of your previous natural ability, even on something like that. So, and anything I'm telling y'all, Dave, if you want me to back it up, I can show you where I forgot the information from. And if anybody thinks I say anything that's wrong, please call me on it, but I don't think I will, but if I do, please let me know, and I'll be glad to verify, yes.
No, I really like the point you just made, because the first thing I noticed was I couldn't smell. And my kids was like, always saying, "Daddy, do you smell bad?" And I was like, "I don't smell nothing." And you're right, if more doctors and more people knew those 6, because the dizziness, the smell, you went down that list, and I'm like, yeah, before I was diagnosed. And it's just, I'm nodding my head over here because I'm like, wow.
It doesn't have to be that way.
No, it didn't.
It bothers me that it is.
Me too.
The thing about, and I'll say another thing about smelling. I've learned this personally. It's not just that you can't smell many or most things. I can't smell the stinking bathroom. That's a shocker. But it's kind of nice in a way. But yeah. But you also, I smell things that aren't there. My wife's nose is plenty good. My children's noses are plenty good. And I'll say to them fairly often, I'll say, "Do y'all smell anything?" Because I'm getting a sense of something in the air. And that smoke that blew through here recently, I saw the haze, but I didn't smell it. When I heard about it, I thought, well, I tried to smell because I thought it must be smoke in the area. I didn't know it was away. But I did see it, but I could not smell it. And my son said he could. But you don't just not smell things that are there. I believe, from my experience, that you smell things that are not there. Like I mentioned, I think one time before about the cooking oil in the kitchen in the grocery stores where I was doing my job. I smelled the cooking oil, I thought, and I said, "That cooking oil smells rotten and rancid. When's that been changed?" And I looked at it, it looked pretty clean. And nobody else in the room could smell it, including my coworker. So I realized it had to be me, smelling things that are not even there. Now, I've talked about the source of some of the information that I've brought into my head, reading. There's also a lot of videos that are put out by foundations, universities, and other credible hospitals, organizations from these seminars that are held all over the country. These movement disorder specialists, I understand there's only 40 of them per year that graduate into this career field. It's not very many for, 340 million people we have in the United States now. But trying to think, oh yeah. So, but of those that are in the field, many of them are doing presentations that are available to just go to YouTube, type in Parkinson's disease in the search, and then you'll get like 300 things you can listen to. Many of them are advertisements. So you look at the source of their information, and you can look at it and see if it's trying to sell something or not. You'll learn how to determine that. But the ones I look at are the ones that are credible, trusted, good sources of information. Again, not want to put trash in my head, just getting the good stuff. But I encourage you to listen to. So when I'm driving, or I'm pulling weeds in my garden, or I'm planting in my garden, or I'm picking food in my garden, or I'm what else could I be doing? Riding my. I can't do it on grass because that's too loud. I don't have headphones. But riding my bicycle, doing my power walking on the highway out in the country where I live, it's very quiet. I'll have the thing hooked to my belt, and I've got it playing a 45-minute video of some lecture somewhere, and I'm just soaking it in, listening to it. And sometimes I listen to the same speech more than once. But that's another source of information that I picked up, and I'm very thankful for that technology. That's, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we wouldn't have had that technology readily available to help us, but here it is. That makes me think of another thing. I've understood that the fact of what we have today, knowledge-wise and technology-wise, are we where we want to be with Parkinson's disease? Obviously not, as far as knowledge and cure of all things. But we have so much more in our generation right now to deal with this than the previous decades have had. For example, the information about exercise. They didn't used to know about this exercise, critical importance to holding the tide with Parkinson's. But they have discovered that some years back. So when we came along, we've benefiting from that. So be cautious when you hear somebody talking about their grandfather or grandmother or somebody previous to that even describing to you what they went through. We have many more options now that the older people did not have, and so we obviously as believers need to be thankful for that. Praise God that we do, and take advantage of those things, because these are gifts He's given us, and we don't want to miss the goodness that He's laid out before us and the bounty that we can take advantage of. Let's do it and be thankful and grateful for it. Now, another thing I want to talk about is sleep. Just like the exercise, the experts will tell us how critical sleep is. And the reason it's so critical is because as you go throughout your day, whether you've got Parkinson's or not, your brain is doing a lot of work. Everything that goes on in your body is controlled by your brain. And they have determined that the brain, as it does its work like any other organ, is breaking compounds down in the body. And there's toxic parts, and there's parts that are not toxic, like your urine system gets the fluid toxins out of your blood and it goes out through your urine. And the same thing with your number two. The good stuff is taken out and the trash goes out. Well, the brain is a similar situation. And if you don't get good sleep, what I'm going to tell you cannot happen. But what happens apparently is that the toxic substances in your brain, as the result of a day of the grind of work or struggling to walk or wherever you are with your Parkinson's, either working or not working, whatever you're dealing with, those byproducts in the brain have got to get out of your system. Otherwise, they're going to hold you back. And so if you're not well rested when you sleep at night, this exchange and cleaning of your brain, just like your urinary system and your fecal system clean those parts of your body, this cleaning of your brain cannot occur. And so you're handicapped by that. So I say that to tell you that if you're not getting good sleep, you've got to find a way to get sleep. If that means you're married and you can't sleep in the same room because one's snoring or one's kicking the other person because they've got that REM sleep disorder behavior thing, then you got to do something about that. You can't just ignore that and say, well, I'm sleeping good enough. you're going to hold yourself back, and you're going to pay the price over the time that you continue to not take proactive action about that. You've got to get good sleep, and even if you're taking a nap in the afternoon, that's obviously not as good a time for sleeping as during the middle of the night, because you get that long sleep as best you can. Hopefully you're not having to get up too many times in the middle of the night to urinate. I was there some years ago long before I had Parkinson's. I was getting up 5 and 6 times a night. But that's one of the things, since we're talking about sleep, I'll tell especially men, I guess, it was not my prostate. I had that checked out. I thought, well, I got some prostate problem. That you get older, you hear about this. They said, your prostate's good. One, you're drinking too much in the later part of the day. I had cut that out, caffeine, cut that out in the later part of the day. And they put me on a drug that's a sex drug for men, but it also relaxes your urinary system so that your urine can more easily completely get out when you do go to urinate. It gets completely voided, and you're not holding on to about a third of what you had in you that you don't even know is still in you. And so this particular drug works in 2 ways. One for the commercial way that you've heard of on TV, and the other thing is to help you completely urinate, and so therefore you don't have to get up as often to go urinate in the middle of the night, and which means you're going to get better sleep quality because you're not having to get up, walk around the house, and get back in bed, and then try to find time, the ability to fall back to a sleep situation. The last thing I want to talk about is your mood. Your mood is your mental stuff. I never really thought much about that term, except for somebody who was in a bad mood before I had Parkinson's and started studying all this stuff. And I didn't say earlier in the program, but I do want to say, when I got diagnosed, I knew nothing about Parkinson's, nothing. So, and I guess that's true of everybody, because most any disease, unless you've had a family member with it, you don't know, or a real good friend, you don't know anything about it. So this mood thing, I've looked up and read a lot about, and you've got the 2 big things is the anxiety and depression, which is part of Parkinson's in many cases. I think, again, it's about half or more people that would deal with that sometime. So my doctor, my MDS, early on made a couple of references to your anxiety when she was talking to me. And I've heard her say that, and I just blew it off, my anxiety. And so then as I read more about it and saw how common it is, one time I was there and I said, you keep talking to me about anxiety. What do you mean? And she said something to me. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I said, you think I have anxiety? She says, oh, certainly. And I'd never been labeled with anything like that in my whole life. Any kind of mental thing. I got good grades in school and did fine in life, motivated and hard charging and all that. Airborne trooper. And but she said that to me, so I asked my preacher, who is a doctorate in Christian counseling at my church, and I said, the doctor at the Parkinson clinic says she thinks I've got anxiety. I said, what do you think? Because he knows me very well. He said, yeah, I think you got that. I just couldn't believe it. I said, what? I don't feel any different in what I perceive as anxiety. I really don't know. And I really don't fully understand it today. Right now, I fully don't understand it. But I thought, if 2 professional not medical, but he's a professional, but not in a medical sense, but in a psychological sense, if 2 professional people and their staff are telling me this, I guess I better pay attention and listen. I'm paying them, at least I'm paying the doctor, not paying my preacher so much, but I'm paying the doctor for that professional opinion. And I said to myself, I better listen to what they have to say. So then I said, well, let me go get some counseling. I went to a counselor back last spring for about 6 weeks, and I talked to her about this, and she said, yeah, I asked her the question about, do you think I have this? She goes, I think it's more depression. And apparently they're kind of fuzzy between depression and anxiety. And again, it's not something I know a lot about, but I said, well, obviously 3 of them, out of 3, all 3 of them think I got something on this spectrum. So I said to her, should I be taking something for this? Because I really don't know what to do, because I don't have any history. My family has no history about this. So she says, we can put you on antidepressant and see if it'll help you. And so I started off taking something called Desiril. I didn't really feel like it did anything for me. And then I started doing more research on the different drugs. And one of the classes of antidepressant drugs will make your ED situation worse. But when I read that, I said, I'm definitely not taking that, because I'm not going down that road any worse than it already is. Then I found out there was some other drugs that do the same thing, but they act on different neurotransmitters, because what's wrong with our brains is not just dopamine that's out of whack, it's acetylcholine, norepinephrine, or what is it, Carol? Is that epinephrine? And serotonin. So there's 4 of them that I'm aware of. They're out of whack, but dopamine is the one that gets all the press, and apparently it's probably the one that makes the most drastic change in what it should be. But these other drugs that treat these problems work by focusing on 1 or maybe 2 of those 4 neurotransmitters. And so doing my research, I decided that I would agree to take Wellbutrin, which I'm on right now. And I also started taking occasionally, as needed. She gave me a prescription for Xanax. You know, and to get to taking those kind of drugs, you know, my position, I thought, man, this is not what you or your family's about. Plenty of families, I'm sure, do deal with it, but it was a matter of pride that I thought about this, and I thought, yeah, I don't know. But I decided just like getting the counseling and talking to the doctor and talking to my preacher about this, I said, don't be a knucklehead if you need to do something. And so I really don't know that I'm feeling any different, but I do know that I'm doing a lot more work in the course of a day, because I'm home all day. I'm not working my job anymore, and I have a garden, and I have to motivate myself to get going in the morning, and sometimes it's later than other days. But I do a lot more active work during the day. I can just look through my daytimer where I write down what I do and see that I think it is having an effect on me. It's not dramatic, and I can't point my finger right at it except to say that look at the accomplishment. I do things that I didn't do half as much maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So that's something I think is helping me, and I would encourage you to get looked at, and you might agree that it's a benefit to you. But a lot of this, what I've talked about, is a matter of looking into things, find out what you believe will affect you and what you can do about it, and do whatever you need to do to take care of it and deal with it. Don't just stick your head in the sand. Don't ignore it. Don't say, well, it can't be me. This is something beyond our control, and chemicals do make a difference in all facets of our life. And if you don't have them, you don't have it. It's not your fault. But we certainly can do something about it and try to make not only your life, but the life of your family, which is, you know, they're all along for the ride. So you owe them the best you can do to do the best outcome, so that they're not drugged down further and further burdened with whatever you're being bullheaded about not facing and doing something about. And so I don't know if you have any questions or not, but that's pretty much what I had to tell you. Sir?
I was diagnosed at the age of 12 by Fort Benning, Georgia, with one of the worst cases of insomnia they had ever seen someone at that age. And it's followed me to even now. If I get 2.5 hours of sleep at night, if I get 3, that's good for me. So I totally understand what you were saying about the sleep and just the whole, everything was talking about. I was over here, I don't know if you saw me nodding, but I did not realize sleep was so important back then, pushing myself, like you said, job and being a single parent. So I just want to say thank you for bringing that up.
Sure.
And everything.
George, I'll get you a complete set of my sermons. Listen to those. It works for my congregation. You'll fall asleep. It'll be really a lot more hours of sleep that way.
I will say that I brought this book. I may have mentioned it before. I've been to several different support groups, and I've mentioned this before. I don't know if I mentioned it here, but this book called Every Victory Counts. This is free from the Davis Finney Foundation. Look how thick this is. It's got everything you can imagine to read about, and this is obviously a very credible source. Davis Finney was a world-class cyclist for the United States. I think he won a bronze in one of the Olympics as a cyclist. Major athlete, struck down with the same thing all of us have. And but he created a foundation from his own wealth and donations that he was able to drum up. And they send this out. If you want to make a donation, they're glad to have it, of course, because somebody has to pay for this. But I just found out last night that they now have a book that's this year brand new. That's the caregiver's book, very similar to this, but from the caregiver's perspective. You know, if you have a wife or somebody taking care of you, if you can just look up Davis Finney with a PH, not an F. Finney is Phinney. I have the number in here if you want to write the number down. but you can order it online. They'll send it to you free in the mail, or you can download it digitally if you like that. And but this thing is full of information, and it's got worksheets in the back where you can keep track of things if you like. It's got a real nice glossary in the back. You can look up all these terms that you hear about at the doctor's office or wherever you learn about Parkinson's. But I've got it here. If you want to flip through it and look at it, you can't have it. This one's mine.
Yeah.
But I'll be glad for you to let you look at it. And again, this other thing, this little handout, if somebody wants this, I'll be glad to let you take it.
Fortunately, my wife and I were also able to be at the Optimism Walk. And show off your shirt there. I noticed there that, of course, the group that was here last month with the BDS surgery was there. But there are also two other groups. Apparently there are 3 companies that do
Yes.
BDS surgeries. You spent a lot of time talking with the different ones. I appreciated that. I mean, you were there to learn, obviously, and to question. So would you like to share any thoughts about any of the groups that you talked to, especially those, but anything else from that?
Yes, I can comment on that. There are 3, and that's called Deep Brain Stimulation, DBS. And the 3 manufacturers of the hardware, Boston Scientific and Medtronics, and there's a third one. What is it, Carol? There's a third one I can't think of right this second. But the variations of the companies. One of them apparently invented the technology. One of them invented an improvement on the technology, which is the ability to aim the signal. It's like my grandparents years ago in the 70s had an antenna in the attic, and they had a button on the top of the TV, and it was electric, and you could make the antenna, do like a robot and aim in the right direction. Well, that's what they were able to do with those probes that go down in your brain. Those 2 probes go down through the holes in your skull into your brain, and they stay there, and they're attached to wires which go down behind your neck like a heart pacemaker battery, and the battery is here just like it is on a heart pacemaker. So it sends electric impulses to your brains to control the tremor and some other things. But so again, one of them invented the technology, one of them improved the technology in one way. I believe that the third one invented some other aspect of the technology, contributing to the technology that we have today. Let me think. That's the first thing that comes to mind about them. As far as I know, they're all 3, insurance approved. But they have good and bad. And so I would say, and my doctor's been pushing this for me from the second year that I had this. After our first visit, I said, I heard about something they can drill in your head. And the doctor in Virginia Beach told me, you wouldn't be eligible for that. So I blew it off. Then they come back the following year and start every year telling me that I should have it. I don't get that. But the thing is to find out what is good about one system that's better than another system for that aspect, but then the other system has something that's better in another area.
Right.
So I guess if you're going to do, my usual procedure is to put a list of pros and cons on a piece of paper,
Right.
and put them all 3 in a matrix, and make your decision based on what you see as best overall in totality.
Yeah, for you.
For your situation,
Yeah.
because different symptoms. Some people have Parkinson's that is tremor based. That's another thing I like to say. There's 2 basic camps of Parkinson's. The tremor based camp, that's the major problem. And then there's the problem with people who have what's called gait. We talked about this. Gait problems, which is how you walk, whether you're stumbling, whether you're losing your balance, whether you can't walk with, get your hips and legs functioning in a smooth stride. And so that's a part of this DBS thing. Is one system may be better than another for that, and there's at least three targets in the brain that they have to choose from where they put that signal, because depending on your need for improvement in a certain type of symptom as opposed to somebody else, they need to use this target and not that target that your friend might have had, because his Parkinson's is different than yours in a fundamental way, and that target has to be different, because if they don't do that, it won't be successful.
Yeah.
They've got to target it for what your problem is, and they know these things, and they know where those responses, those centers in the brain are that control those particular differences, and where they're not. And then they get it in the right place. Then they tune that thing and get the aim of the signal just right, and it's adjustable as you go forward. So then, if it gets out of whack over a little bit of drift, you might call it, they can fine tune it back in. Just like a microscope's got the coarse adjustment and the fine adjustment, they've got the ability to do that.
Wow.
So it's a great thing.
Yeah.
Anything else? Well, thank you. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Jay. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. George?
First of all, I have to say it was a great presentation when it comes to symptoms and, you're 100% right because, I didn't know why I couldn't smell anymore. I had some theories of younger years, but, we won't get into that. But, no, on a serious note, I think, I'm glad that you took me up on speaking tonight because I think it was a really good learning experience. And I mean, for Nabi, who's new to the group, also is going to have some choices and some, hopefully not the road that I went down. Because I mean, I did go through I think every grief, which made me not sleep more, which just made it more worse. I think like you said, we've talked because I have both types of Parkinson's. The Lord just blessed me wonderfully and gave me both of them, and I actually look at it as a blessing because I never would have met any of y'all and be here talking to everybody who's watching me try to hold my hand steadily. One of the things I want to talk about is next month, and I wanted to announce it, and I think I sent you the email, but next month, Hook Law Firm is going to be our guest speaker. Hook Law Firm is going to actually be coming in, and when I was diagnosed, I didn't know, again, what I had. I didn't know how long I had. I didn't know anything. And that actually got me to reading and searching and calling and getting prayer, especially a lot of prayer. But they're going to be talking about estate planning, and not just estate planning, but making sure that our loved ones and our estates are taken care of, and a whole lot more. They're not going to come in and go, hey, you need to do this right now before that happens to you. No, they're not coming in like that. They're actually coming in to try to help us help our families down the road. The Bible does says a man leaves an inheritance for his children, and that was the first thing I did. So I ran to an attorney and got everything drawn up. I see your son smiling when I said that behind you, Joe. He got this big smile on his face. Secondly, I was talking to the hotel, and I don't know if you want to keep this on, but I was talking to the hotel manager who actually loves this little group, and the group is growing. And I'm just going to say that. I wish the Radcliffes could have made it tonight. I've known them for years, and to know that Mr. Radcliffe has Parkinson's and kind of caught me off guard. Everybody asked about the cookout. I am planning another cookout. I'm actually planning it here and outside, and they've already given us the thumbs up to have another cookout. And we will supply the hamburgers and hot dogs. I can go, we'll supply the hamburgers and hot dogs. If you want to bring something, you can. I love stuff out the garden fresh. Did I say that out loud? No, seriously. But one of the things that when I say I just don't see a support group, I see a family. And this is what I envisioned as the Parkinson support group. People coming in and speaking, but taking time and us getting together. And I mean, that first meeting was just wonderful. Me, you, and Leroy sitting down, and y'all taught me so much. We're also have been invited, and Leroy's lovely wife back there already have one, and this is for everybody. And if you want to come, you can. If not, I'm gonna pass these out, but thank you, Pastor Matt. The 1st of July, Yorktown Beach, we're gonna be at Ben and Jerry's. And one of the things that I wanna do is, I wanna start doing more activities, and Leroy, I'm just gonna say this, I have not forgotten, me and you have a date at the YMCA, in the water, and in the garden. Actually, we're gonna end this with a prayer and then kind of come together as a group, because we can meet here once a month and we can sit down and have guest speakers. But the day I called y'all, and it's still gonna air, I'm gonna say that, the Parkinson's support, the little that this group and God has done through this group for Sheriff Ron Montgomery to announce to this group, and it's gonna be announced on Channel 3 still, about the Parkinson's training that in Newport News and Chesapeake and some other cities is getting in on this. So have we made a difference as a little group? Yes, we have. Yes, we really have. And I'm working on a bill because I'm finding some issues with insurance and physical therapy. And I'm working on with some councilmen and some councilwomen, but again, we'll talk about that at a later time. But I want us to be, my goal, Joe, if you ever need help in your garden, they keep forgetting to put me on a work schedule for some odd reason. Like you, I mean, I get a physical, I'm good health, but like you, like I said, I've been do too much, I start locking up. But I'm gonna ask Pastor Matt to come up and close out on prayer, where we can kind of get in our little group and discuss some other stuff. And I wanna thank everybody for coming. I wanna thank Bobby for, I mean, would you like to stand up and tell the group a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. What do you say?
Would you like to stand up and tell the group a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, my name is Abdul Nabi. I'm actually from Bangladesh.
Oh,
I've been going on this Parkinson for like 3-4 years. Doctor gave me medicine there till we start taking medicine. You don't have the Parkinson. Then I go back to doctor again, because I have the Parkinson. It's going on for 3 years.
wow.
3 years. Then finally, the physical therapist find out I have a Parkinson. I used to be a marathon runner, so I can run no more than 3 miles, then slowly down to the 2 miles, then 1 mile, then I can run anymore. I go to the doctor, why I can run anymore. Doctor couldn't figure out, give me this medicine, give me that, give me this. It's going on, it's still going on. So I have to go 23rd, I have to go to another neurologist. But I do have a Parkinson, I'm definitely sure. Because so stiff my hand, left hand. Takes a long time. And how long I have it, at least I know 3 years. We've had it for 5-6 years. Yeah.
Yep. Wow.
5-6 years. At least. Because I used to be run 5-6 miles a day. They run 4 miles a day, then 3.5 miles a day. I couldn't run anymore. But I can't walk anymore. I used to be run at Fort Monroe. One end to other end, come back. Slowly I was just everything collapsing in my whole body.
Is the medicine helping you at all?
Medicine, hell, I can walk a little bit now, but this disease comes and goes. One minute feel a little bit better, the other minute feel terrible. So the medicine helped like 10% only.
One of the things, Tommy, I'm gonna say is, I have, and I've said this to Pastor Matt, I have some really good days, I have some really bad days. I have those days like today. I'm kind of, and I mean, I have arthritis throughout my body, plus the Parkinson's, and my concentration is not where it used to be. But, and on that note, I'm going to invite Pastor Matt Scott to close us out on prayer.
Well, sure.
Where we can actually get into the word.
Sometimes I can hear them, though, just like you say something to me, and I just, the whole thing is confusing, this disease.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's close with prayer, and then feel free to stay as long as you'd like. And but it's so good to see everyone tonight and have the opportunity for this encouragement together. Father, I thank you for the joy that you give us and that you place in our lives. Thank you, Father, for the comfort and strength. Father, thank you for helping us through each day. May the good days and the bad days each draw us closer to you and to one another. Thank you, Father, for this time and for all of Joe's preparation and all that he shared, all the questions asked and all the personal things shared. I just thank you, Father, for helping us each day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.